Well, as we promised you, we were hosting this morning the leader of the opposition, and he's joined us this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You look fresh on Monday, man.
And a rest of the weekend.
Good morning, you're in trouble.
Yes, indeed. Got the rest of the week, and that's downhill.
You're quite busy, aren't you? What's a typical day right now for you?
Just lots and lots of meetings. Well, when I'm in Belize, it's mostly meeting with different groups and different people. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays now I am walking in my constituency.
Okay.
Because of it's not only Orange Walk Central I have to look after.
Yeah.
So my executive have been after me for some time that I have to walk and do the area from now. So when the campaign is in full, it's full-fledged, then it would then release me some more so that I don't have to spend as much time in Orange Walk Central. They promise that they're going to take on the slack for me whilst I do the campaign in the rest of the country.
Because that's what I was going to ask, if you're doing a lot of the country, so right now.
Yes, but I just have to, it's long hours.
Well, I think primarily, like you see in the United States as well, is that even though they are large, people still like to see and touch their leaders. We're talking about the Iowa caucus coming up right now, and there is this concern that some of the senators will have to be involved who are running in the impeachment hearing, while they should be on the ground in Iowa, because that's what the whole campaign issue is about, touching base with the people.
Well, that's what I tell everybody, all our standard bearers, that's one part of the work that you're doing that you cannot run away from. You need to meet your voters.
Yeah.
They want to be able to see you, they want to touch you, they want to hear from you, and that you ask them personally for that vote.
Yeah.
I can tell you, when I'm in Orange Walk Central, most of the time people are just happy to see you.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah. They don't necessarily want something from you.
And ask questions about the government, what's going on, and the party, what the party is doing. I know a lot of people think, oh, you go there and beg you. And I honestly, that's not a big problem. There's still people that have the needs, especially when it comes to education and health, and trying to find a job. But by and large, people are just happy to see you, and to me, that's what is important, to develop that personal touch with the people that you represent.
Well, speaking of the United States and elections and all that, President Trump has created a whole new way of being a president. And also it's making America look at itself inwardly and decide there may be loopholes in how people are elected. And I'm reading an article here where the Supreme Court has agreed last Friday to take up an issue that could change a key element of the system America uses to elect its president. And that is, of course, has to do with the Electoral College. And that whole thing. Now, my question to you, do we need to look at the way also here how we elect our leaders now? And I ask you, I know it comes up. We're talking about redistricting, we're talking about a fixed date for elections, campaign financing and all that.
Well, there are a lot of things that we need to do, but let's talk about the ones that are right in front of us, the issue of redistricting. The issue of redistricting is that it is solely set in the hands of the political directorate. Why do I say that? It is because you have the Elections and Boundaries Commission that is controlled by the government. So if it is not in the interest of the government to have a redistricting or registration, they tend to put it off. So one of the first things that we need to do is to ensure that the Elections and Boundaries Commission is completely independent, that the government does not have control over it. So that when it comes time to do our redistricting, it is re-registration, it is done automatically without having to ask the government permission or their support.
You're saying that's the situation right now.
That is,
the election boundaries knows the time has come for redistricting, but They go to the leaders say, no, we can't afford it right now.
Or
Call it
for
off.
whatever reason that they can't do it, and sometimes politically it's not in their interest. These things have to be done automatically, like in the United States. They do the census, and then based on the census, they're already predicting certain states are going to be losing seats, like the New York and California and Texas and Florida are getting more seats. And I think we need to have a system similar to us. One of the ways that we can do that, and it is something that we want to do, is to have one national ID that has your biometrics, that has everything, so that with that, it keeps tracks of wherever you are. So if you move from Orange Walk Central and then you come to Freetown, because of the transactions that you do using that, when the time comes for re-registration, it can be done automatically without you even having to go to the registration office, because they have all the data there.
Right.
And they just put you where you are, and then they send you a notice, no, you're a voter of Freetown. You see, because it is the way it is done right now, it's a very expensive process. You have to get new cars, new registration. I mean, a lot of people have to
And
be
to
hired
even get there, you
that
need
done.
to go get this
And
birth
then the
paper.
most important thing, the most difficult thing is then to get people to take the time out to go and register
Yeah.
and then get so. By using technology, we could do some of these things. And then also, if you know that every 10 years you have your redistricting, then you know that you look at your voters list, and you know that you have to make certain changes, and it is done without it having control of the government. As it is right now, if you do a redistricting, it is the government that controls the process, simply because they have a majority on Elections and Borders Commission.
Right.
So, but the question to you was, as hopefully the next leader of the country, what are you going to do about it?
I just answered it.
Well, what you're telling me will take another 10 years.
No. If India could have put in
All right,
a national
okay. Well,
ID,
let's get
in-
down to
wait,
specifics.
If they could put in a national ID, and in less than 5 years registered 850 million of their citizens in that system, we are just 406,000, man. We could do that within a year or two. The technology is there.
Okay, what I'm trying to get, you can do it, or are you planning
That
to
is
do it?
that is one of the things that we want to do.
How
We
will that
have to
work?
do
How
it.
will that work? That's, we'll
Well,
kick it
Well,
in how
we
early?
can't, we will be there all day talking about the entire thing.
No, no, that's
simple
not the
thing-
point.
The
We
simple
want-
thing is that we can use already Social Security already has a lot of the work done.
Okay.
So then we need to add the Social Security with the biometrics. They're starting right now.
Okay.
With your fingerprints, and then we need to add your eye, and then ensure now that every citizen, from the day they are born, they are registered into that system.
So if the PUP comes in as government, that's the way you're going to
Yes.
approach it, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to find out.
Trying to get a much more global system in place, which makes a lot of sense, because right now there's a lot of bits and pieces. You have your Social Security, you have your voter's ID, you have
Driver's
birth paper,
ID.
you have driver's license. So
The idea with this
So-
one ID, see, you will not use it only just for your Social Security card or national ID,
No,
but
it's
you
a
could use
national
it, for
ID.
instance, for credit.
Right.
You want to go to the bank and borrow money. The banks can have access to a portion of that data to ensure that it is your gap that's in front of you. And they could and pay for a fee for it. It opens credit to poor people. Poor people do not have access to credit because they don't have a credit history. And so if they get credit, they charge them a lot of money. But with this database, the creditors could, or the business people could immediately check on you and say, oh, in a good credit risk, so I'm going to give him credit at a lower interest rate.
Yeah.
So it opens up and creates a lot of opportunities and start to bring more people into the formal economy as it is right now. It is suspected that the informal economy is probably as large as the formal economy believes.
Okay.
And as we were speaking about the issue of identification, because just recently, I think it was last week, it was in the news where we had this whole influx of people who were trying to get nationalization because they are out there, obviously in the country. Some of them are illegal, and now they are trying to regularize their situation. For some reason, they were not able to do that through the formal system. So we see now that it now becomes a political issue where the politicians are taking charge of that and trying to then get the credit, as we see in the Lake Independence situation last week. what would be a view on that in terms of regularizing that process so people know that there's a pathway that is easy and straightforward, so it doesn't, we don't need no politician to come guide that process, that the system can take care of itself?
Well, first, it's important for us to put on record that we're not against these people getting their nationality. Many of them deserve to be to become Belizeans. Many of them love this country. They believe that they feel that they're Belizeans, but the system has not worked. It has not helped. Now, there's a system that can work, but the big problem is the public servants, the public service, that they're not doing their job. I think it is wrong when an individual, you get a paper, you get a passport, then you have to get a doctor paper and everything, and they take it there, and then they don't hear from these people till 1 year, 2 years later when they go and try to check, and then tell them, oh, everything now expires, so you have to start to do it all over again.
Oh.
I met a lady came to see me just about 2 weeks ago. She needs advice. He said, I had put in my old passport, I put in everything a few years ago, and then I've been up and down now. I can't get, I had to now get a new passport. He said, she's about 55 years old. He says, she was here from before she was 18. So she, most of her life, she has children that are adults, that are Belizeans, no? And the system has not worked for them. So we have to hold the public service responsible to ensure that there is a system where these people can go through for a path to citizenship. It is there, but we need to make it work, and that's the problem.
You know, we use the word accountability.
By the way,
a
can
lot.
I
Sure.
use this
Oh,
one?
certainly.
Sure. The accountability and the question of this, you know, we held an inquiry and all that a few years ago on this whole immigration issue, and we still can't get the report out.
Accountability is an old
Yeah.
cliche.
How do we hold our officials? How can we hold our officials accountable? Let's say Senator Salazar, who has not presented this report. I, as a citizen out here, and people out here become really discouraged by saying, "There's nothing I can do." How do we, you as let's say the next leader of our country, will change that to give me more power so I can hold you accountable?
I think that we need to start we have to govern differently. We can't continue to govern the way it has. It has not. In certain instances, it has worked, but it has not worked as well as it should have. And one of the biggest problems is this feel of helplessness as a citizen that
Right.
you can't help hold your officials or your elected officials accountable. And it started off with the whole premise on corruption, that we have to be able to hold or to be able to have laws that can be implemented and enacted on. For instance, when the Prime Minister last week mentioned that now he's going to pass a file to the DPP, and when we were pressing him, I said, when Kola went to court and the Chief Justice of this country told the Commissioner of Police, hand over the file to Kola on the Penner case.
Yeah, the then commissioner.
And the then Commissioner Wiley refused to act. And then the Prime Minister, who's supposed to be the person at the top trying to show the example, refused to instruct the Commissioner of Police to do anything about it. I think this is where it failed. I think that at that moment, the Chief Justice, I believe, should have sent and get Wiley arrested and lock him up until he had passed over the file. He is defying the law of the country. When you have the Attorney General, he will tell you that when the Caribbean Court of Justice has ruled and said, government, you have to pay this bill, and the Attorney General will tell you, well, they can't hold the Prime Minister accountable because Parliament has refused to vote the money. Parliament is not above the law. They're not above the law. And so the courts have to be able to feel that they have the power to enact whatever ruling that they have done.
What do you feel
And
about
that is
issue of tenure for judges?
well,
Because
that leads to some of the things that needs to be done.
Right.
First of all, judges need to have tenure, and that they don't feel that they are at the mercy of the political directorate. As it is right now, the Chief Justice is waiting whether they'll renew his contract or not. I don't know yet. The Prime Minister has not written to me. So we have to wait. but yet the Chief Justice have some very important rulings. I think there's supposed to be a ruling today on the case that we took out against the government when they spent $1.3 billion without authority of Parliament. You know, and it makes you question, whilst there might be nothing wrong with it, but it makes you question with these issues. But if the Chief Justice and the judges of the court have that tenure, they know that they don't have to answer anymore to the political director because their job is secure as long as they work within the law. You know? So that is one of the things that we have to. We have to give judges tenure. We have to start to put in laws that would allow citizens to have the power to be able to go to the court and say, we believe that Senator Aldo Salazar is taking way too long to give his report. 2 years has passed, and now we want the court to rule on that. So the court could tell Aldo Salazar
in this case, let's to put that in perspective, is he solely responsible at this point in time? Because it was a
as a chairman, everything has been done, and now he as a chairman needs to prepare a report.
Okay. Well, we need to take a break.
As far as we know, he has not.
We need to take a break. We'll come back and again talk about those issues. And you said we should do this and we can do this. What we want to hear from you is that you will do this. You know,
I think that's why we're talking about it. And so
I just
those
want
are
to
the
make
things
sure
that we're talking and we have to do.
And we'll do. What we'll do is take a break and we'll come back and continue our chat with the leader of the opposition.
The new Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards reflect your payment needs. All Visa cards now include an embedded chip that generates a unique security code each time you perform a transaction, making it virtually impossible to copy your card. Use your card anywhere the Visa logo is displayed by either performing a contactless payment or a chip card payment. These new cards offer more security, acceptance, and convenience wherever you pay, giving you the peace of mind you need to enjoy life's special moments. Atlantic Bank chip and contactless cards. One card, 2 ways to pay.
Atlantic Bank, building the future together.
Every friendly competition has a winner and a loser, a runner-up, a second best, someone that just doesn't have what it takes. Our friends know this feeling all too well. Since Digi introduced their new prepaid data plans, Digi fans have been happier than ever. While the other guys, their plans just can't even compare. Digi's new plans have the best value for your dollar. That's more data for less money, with even more options. So keep being a winner and keep living your best life with Digi.
I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. I wish I had a girl.
tell you to go home. Evening come and I'm ready for drop. Yeah, the shirt and the piece will tell you to go home.
We're back again, folks. We are chat this morning with the leader of the opposition, the Honorable John Briceno. I just want to go back a little bit on the redistricting issue. What you said, of course, makes a lot of sense, and it can happen. But could that be affected by any decision made by the court, considering that it's now the Belize Peace Movement has
I
taken
don't know
it
what
to
do
the
you mean,
court?
what could
Well,
be
if the
affected?
judge rules,
That it has to be done.
it has to be done.
If the
yeah.
judge rules that it has to be done, it has to be done. The concern will be right now, though, is that we're so close to an election that to change to redistrict or to
At this
change the
time.
boundaries a month, 2 months, even 3 months before an election is very difficult, because then they're moving voters that you've worked with and giving you new voters that you don't know, and you have to try to get to know them. So that, I think, is part of it. But we do understand the need for redistricting. You can't have a division with 2,000 voters, and then you have another one with 7,000 when the Constitution states that constituencies need to be as close as
need to
possible.
be
I think
aligned.
10 plus or minus percent difference between one another. So it is something that its time has come.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be logistically feasible to do it at this point in
At
time.
this time,
Yeah.
it will be a bit.
Yeah.
But you're saying that you are going to look into
Yes,
it.
no, we have to find a way how we can do that automatically. That it just
Automatically.
get done without having input from the political director.
Speaking of automatically, what's your feelings on a fixed date for elections, for instance?
Yes, that is one of the things that we want to propose. Actually, it is in our. We presented good governance and shared responsibility almost 2 years ago, and one of the things that we said that we need to set fixed election. Personally, I think we should have all elections in March. And you say, well, why March? Well, March because it's not too hot.
Not too
And
hot?
it's not raining. And it's easier for people to come out and vote than when
Right,
it's raining. But
right.
yes, we need to do like what England has done, Great Britain, where now they have a fixed date for election. And if you want to have an earlier date, then you have to go to Parliament, debate it, and have a supermajority, which in many instances would include the opposition for for them to agree that you're going to have an early elections.
Okay, so
Which generally they might not object to.
Generally,
that's one of them. Yeah. What about campaign financing?
campaign financing, it's a tough one, but we need to find common sense approach to campaign financing. I mean, even the United States of America, one of the most developed democracies, they're having problems with campaign financing. But there are certain things that can be done. For instance, we need to enact legislation, that's without a doubt. I think that we need to be able to limit the amount of a campaign. If you limit to a month, 2 months, 3 months at most. Like in England, I think in Canada, it's 30 days. Secondly, you all might not like to hear this, but you use the airwaves, and if you want to have an inclusive democracy, that then political parties should be given some time to put their ads, be it at a subsidized rate or whatever. Then we need to be able to strengthen the laws within the elections, the campaign law, that you can limit the amount of monies that are spent in a campaign. And fourthly, that then you can make it easier to prosecute politicians that are seen to be bribing the voters. But as we said in our paper, this is a shared responsibility. Good governance is a shared responsibility. Citizens or voters cannot be going after the politicians and say, okay, we need you to walk a straight line, you need to do this and this and that, and then come to them and tell them, I want you to pay my light bill, I want you to pay my rent, I want you to pay my water bill, I may be sick, I don't want you on party, and you can't do that.
Right.
You can't do that. And lastly, is this issue. We have not given thought, well, we have not discussed it, but what is happening in other countries, again, like in Canada, and I know in Mexico and other areas, where then the state makes a certain amount of monies available based on the amount of votes that we got in the previous election that political parties can use for their campaign, which would then lessen the need for them to go to
The donors.
donors to give them monies, and of course they will expect some kind of
Yeah. Because
compensation later on when they win in
I
government.
saw with the
Yeah.
recent
So-
story.
The point is that good governance and to have all of this done properly, there is a cost. One way or the
Of
other,
course,
we
of
have
course.
to
Yeah.
find, we have to
Yeah.
have costs.
They-
So
they-
we
as
can't be
Belizeans,
saying
we have to want to change.
precisely, that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking that we want to change, but are we prepared to take the necessary action to change it?
Are
And
we
this is
prepared
where
to be
we
held
have to be.
accountable ourselves?
Yes.
Yeah.
All
But-
of us, not only the politicians.
Agreed, agreed. But
all of us.
but remember that at the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about how you will build the confidence of the people on the politicians.
Right.
You have to change some of the ways
And,
of govern
and the
change
easiest
some
thing to do,
laws.
Ernesto, is to lose that confidence. The most difficult today is to
gain
gain back
it
that
back.
confidence. And to gain that confidence, it has to be based on the actions that you take, the proposal that you're presenting, and then once you get in, that you ensure that you do it. Look at the present Prime Minister. He was elected on an anti-corruption platform. And today we have the worst, most corrupt government we've ever had. And then the very same Prime Minister is continuously spinning and spinning and spinning, trying to say, well, you know, they're not me, you know, and I am held accountable if they got the evidence from me. But in many instances, you will not be able to get the evidence. But any thing that looks that was wrong and of impropriety, then you could fire that minister from your cabinet, and the Prime Minister has refused to do that. Look at the issue with Herman Langsworth. The Prime Minister had that report for more than a year on his desk. He knew what has happened in that at Sports Council, and only now because now he tabled it. Now he's saying he's going to take action, but he could have taken action a long time ago.
But shall we come full circle to the same point that because of the failings of not implementing the institutions and strengthening the institutions that are supposed to make me, the citizen, have confidence in you, that is where we're at. We are talking about PAC, for instance, the Integrity Commission, all these things. If you deliberately not make them work, then you're
Precisely, and
disenfranchising me,
this is what
and I
we're
don't
saying.
have confidence in you.
And
So-
this is what we're saying. And right now, we can only tell you, and until we get in, you can judge us. But right now, we're saying, one, we cannot continue to govern this country the way it is because people are getting frustrated, and eventually they're going to take out their frustrations on us, the politicians. So it's not only in the interest of the country, but even on us as politicians, because we're going to get hurt.
Do you have
if we continue
a
that
first
way.
100 days
So,
action that you'll take?
yeah, we're working on that. But some of the first things that we want to do, we have to strengthen the office of the Auditor General and make a bigger budget available to that office, so that then they could go and audit every ministry
More frequently.
and everything every year. I believe that government needs to be audited every single year, and every department needs to be able to give account for every cent that they get. They're spending over $1 billion right now. So that is one. Secondly, the Integrity Commission. We have to strengthen the Integrity Commission and give them the necessary funding for them to be able to not only receive our documents, but also to be able to investigate it. That you could have forensic accountants, and that they could go out there and investigate how is it that these ministers or government officials, not only ministers, but government officials have amassed all that wealth in such a short time. We need to pass. They have not.
Have they? Have they amassed wealth?
I'll let you answer that one.
No, I throw it out there to those who are listening.
Of course they
because
have.
everybody, if they have amassed wealth, then it's the next move is to find out how they amassed it.
Exactly, and that is why the Integrity Commission needs to have the ability to do that. And the
you have the
Integrity Commission
FIU as
also,
well too?
Yes,
Yes.
And the Integrity
Financial
Commission, the important thing with the
unit.
Integrity Commission is also we have to remove the control from the government. As it is right now, you have 3 members from the government and 2 members from the opposition. We have to remove that from the party in government to have that majority.
How I as a citizen can hold these people in the Integrity Commission accountable? What can I do?
You can't. There's no
Do we come
mechanism.
back full circle that again? It has to come from those who can legislate.
And you remember
those
how
who can
difficult
create
it was to even get somebody to
see,
serve
because
as
they
an
don't
accountant.
exactly.
But as it is
We had to
right now-
change a law for the
No,
contractor
but,
general.
well, we never had a contractor.
Yeah, we
general.
had to change the law
Finally,
and all
we
for
checked it
that.
after many
Right.
years. No, but the point is that if the court system is working, you can go to court and ask for certain things to be done.
Come back to the judge's tenure, right?
It goes right back
Yeah.
that the court system needs to be able to operate.
We need to
And
have
we're talking about separating
its three segment of government.
no, I'm talking about the court system, that you have a civil, you have a business, and then you have a criminal courts. That the only way that so that things can be moving much faster. But this court system has to be able to work, and that the prime minister or the government in power would not have the ability to be able to stop any kind of investigation going against anybody.
Because that is where I think, and I think Ernesto was trying to make that point, which I think you've succinctly responded to and answered. Because fundamentally what we are faced with is a total distrust in the system. You made the point that whenever there is an issue that pops up, like this recent one with the Lev Derman individual with the trial in the U.S., basically the first question was, well, I asked people if they took any money from the gentleman, and the response from the cabinet is, according to the prime minister, was no. And basically it kind of ends there for the most part. And so there is no way. There's no
People
way.
get more upset.
Yeah, there's no
Because
way
they
now.
take it for fools.
Right.
At the very least, the prime minister should have done, or still could do, is to tell John Saliva, you know what, I'm not firing you, but I'm suspending you from the cabinet until this thing is cleared up. Because obviously you were with him. I mean, Jules Vasquez said it. I know what I saw. And I saw this man lavishing, with gifts and all kind of stuff to John Saliva and his team. Jules Vasquez even said that he heard that Lev Derman used to send a private jet for the minister, and his group to fly all over the place. So the prime minister is fully aware of this. So the very least the prime minister could have done, at the very least, is to tell him, I'm suspending you from cabinet until we will clear this up.
Would that be
But he
something
does
that
nothing.
you would have done?
Of course, we have to. And that's why what I'm telling my colleagues as it is, you see what they're going through? We also have to be careful. And now people are going to hold us to an even higher standard. And when issues like that happens, then I will be expected to act, and I will act. Because we cannot continue to go down this road. That is why we're talking about setting up this anti-corruption agency that will be able to investigate and have the authority to investigate any issue of corruption within the government system.
This is talking about the UNCAC.
Apart from the
component.
UNCAC.
Oh,
The UNCAC is
separate
going to be
as
part of the UNCAC.
Like
Okay.
CICIG.
It's going to be UNCAC, like CICIG. But not
yeah.
exactly that. Because CICIG had its own issues. But something like CICIG
Right.
that's going to be independent, they have their own budget, and they could go
Do
and
their own
investigate
forensic.
from the highest levels of government to the lowest levels of government. Because again, you profile the ministers and so forth, but when you look at the entire system in government, there's a lot of work that we have to do. But by setting up the system, I am telling my colleagues, I said, remember, we will not have control over that, so you make sure that you act straight, because if you go there, I will not be able to help you.
Because that comes down to the public service. The public service now we are seeing is malfunctioning, it is corrupt. We are hearing about officials within the system who are being bought and are doing things.
Well, they are the ones that facilitate the ministers in
Right,
many instances.
but that all started with the weakening of the whole system of the permanent secretary and the CEO and things like that, and the CEOs became politically appointed and so on. That has to change.
Yes, we have taken a decision that we want to change it. And what we want to do is to divide the work. You have the political work, and by political, we don't mean party politics, the
Caretakers?
policies of the government. And then you have the actual running
The administration
of
side.
the yes.
Administrative
and
side.
we are seriously looking of either come back to the word
E.
permanent secretary, you know, but then the minister can have a person that will ensure that the policies of the government is done, but through the person that is responsible for the ministry, and that has to be a senior public officer, which comes through the rank like
Who's
the
a
permanent
career
secretary,
person.
a career person, and not a political person.
Because there was an attempt one.
Because a lot of times what is happening, and let me try to finish
Sure.
this, please, is that we then appoint party people not to run the ministry, and then so when they're in the ministry and say, oh, I don't like Troy that PUP or in a UDB, so we are fine, we are bringing this one, and we do that, and it is demoralizing the system, it is breaking down the system. We have to be able to give cover, comfort, protection to the public service. That now a senior career public officer is going to be in charge of them, and no any political hack one, then I will move that one carry and then bring her and that kind of stuff. That has to come to an end. And that is the only way we'll be able to fix it. But at the same time, we have to hold our public officers accountable also, that they need to get the work done. Because now when you hear what all you have to do to try to get anything done in government, I mean, it is shameful, it is crazy, and it has to be fixed.
Yeah, I was about to say that back between the 93-98 period, there was an attempt to create some sort of thing. I think they call them executive officers, which was basically a political imperative that was between the minister and the permanent secretary. So I figure it's something.
It is something that we
something
yes,
like
we are
that, you know,
taking a
kinda.
look at that the minister can have his executive officer that will look after ensuring that the policies of the government are being implemented, because there are also many cases where the permanent secretary does not agree with the party in government, and then they undermine it. And so we have to find a way where we can avoid that, so that then the executive officer will say in the Ministry of Lands or in the Ministry of Works, this is the policy of the government, and let's see how we're going to get it implemented. And that person will not have the authority to go and say, move that one or fire this one on. Nothing to do with that, but simply working directly with the permanent secretary, the senior public officer, to ensure that the work of the government is implemented as effectively and efficiently as it possibly can.
Looking back, say after election this year, and then looking back now in reference to all the allegations of or speculations of ill-gotten wealth in terms of people in power, is there going to be a plan for a proper investigation, proper forensic, and a possible asset recovery in place as well?
Yes. One of the things that, again, with the anti-corruption agency, that group will have the authority and the mandate.
Okay,
to
they will be tasked to do retroactive.
Okay, and I believe that we need to start to investigate, and we need to have all politicians give account for everything they own from 2012. Declaration of assets from 2012 coming forward. Remember when we finally had Integrity Commission, we didn't have one for years.
Right,
you know, it's incredible, but it's true. It is only until 2015, after 2015 election, 2016, that we had an Integrity Commission. And one of the first things that the Integrity Commission said is that we are going to demand for filing from 2012 coming forward. That was agreed to. I am told that when that went to cabinet, the ministers said absolutely no way they're not going to do that. So 1 month later, they met again, and then the Integrity Commission, they have the majority, they have 3-2, and said, no, we have decided that we're going to start from now because we now have the authority to go, which is crap. Sorry, I should use that word. But I mean, it's.
But what allows them to say that? If it is crap, what allows them to say that? I mean, what gives them
because they have the majority,
impunity?
Because they have the majority, simple as that. And that is why I'm saying the majority from the government has to. That's one of the first things
How would you go about
selecting
in that Integrity Commission? Let's say the day comes and you will have to set up a group like that. that.
Yes.
What qualifications, what curriculum, BTs,
Well, they
or
do
whatever
have
are you going to look?
qualifications, but a
Are
lot
you
of
gonna
them
look for?
are political hacks. And they are going to do what the government tells them what to do. So we have to make sure that then that the government would not have the majority to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then they're going to go and do it. But the people, many of them are qualified persons.
Yeah.
You know, but because the political director tell them, well, I think it's best we could do it, we could just have on 2015 because we are just gotten, you know, your mandate is just starting, you know, and so they give into it.
How about this idea? I'll throw it out to both of you. You know, we talk about third parties, and we are not culturally set up to elect third parties. You know, and the PUPs become the government. Is there a chance that you would look at these third parties and say, you know what, we'll start the Integrity Commission from you guys? Because we know, at least they're giving us the idea right now that they are going to hold us to account.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think, Ernest, so they're
They're
not the
looking for
only
people
ones.
who-
I don't think they're the only ones that have any kind of integrity and want to see things done. I mean, we have the private sector, we have the NGO community, we have the religious
Churches,
leaders,
yeah.
where we can go to that really want to get to some
Well, a
of
lot
these
of
things
these are
done.
already tainted, aren't
And lastly, and yes, some of them are tainted, granted, but so are the third parties also. I mean,
They have their
you
own
know,
agenda,
they have
but-
their
but
own
they will make
But-
sure that
but
hold you
it's not,
accountable.
I don't think it's a matter of saying, because you're a third party and just get less than 5% of the vote, now I'm going to put you in there. I would probably put you based on who you are as a person, but not because you are a third party.
Yeah.
And that's the distinction.
Alrighty.
In terms of looking forward, there's a couple of issues that you brought out that is also
You gave me about 20 different things. I want to talk about 3.
They are linked, you know. They'll come back to corruption.
It's the minimum wage.
Yes.
$5 minimum wage would be a significant increase in the average person's salary in terms of the minimum wage. So store attendants, many of those persons, housekeepers, and so we're going to see an increase. So that's something you want to implement. But on the back side of that, the question comes up is, can it be afforded by those persons who are paying it? How do you see that working?
If we're serious about addressing poverty, we have to address the issue of minimum wage. We cannot have close to 150,000 people living in poverty. And one way you start by addressing that is through the minimum wage, that you can increase their salary at least to $5. It's still not a living wage in Belize, but we can address that issue by NHI and free education and other stuff that can put it together, uplift you out of poverty. So there has to be a commitment, a political commitment and a social commitment that we are going to raise the minimum wage. Now, we have to find how best we can do it without hurting also small businesses. So we need to be able to sit down and have a discussion with the private sector, with labor and with government in how we're going to implement it. And it has to be a discussion with a 3-month window or 6 months at the most to come up with a plan, because if we can't come up with a plan, then the government is going to come up with a plan to get it done.
Right.
There are certain industries that you pay by piecework, so that will have to stay. But in areas like the shops and so, obviously, we will have to be able to increase the minimum, find a way how we're going to increase the minimum wage to $5 an hour.
That sounds good, but it brings up a lot of questions of the bigger picture, the whole economy of the country, the way taxes are collected and all that.
The economy is going to be a priority, and taxation. We are, as it is right now, we have a small team looking at the taxation in this country, and the view is to be able to see how we can income tax, that if we can either eliminate income tax within, we haven't set the time date, but at the very least to eliminate income tax maybe up to about 50,000, and then above then they pay income tax, and they could pay
So
at
raise
an
the
even
threshold.
higher rate. So that by doing that as it is right now, is almost like a pay raise that we're going to give the middle class.
middle class.
We need to be able to ensure that we can, in instances where we can lower taxes and widen the net, so that then we can then collect
Widening
more
the net.
taxes. Widening the
Hold
net.
that thought for me. We'll take a break. It's 8:30 and we'll come back. And we're back, folks. We are chatting this morning with the leader of the opposition and his plans, considering the fact that it's an election year. And, well, of course, you and your party are vying for that, and hopefully yourselves want to become the next government of the country. And we're talking about what changes you are seeing and what changes need to be done. And just before we went to break, we were mentioning or getting into the economy of the country. And it's sad to say that at this point in time, we are not going through a very good time. A lot of our exports are suffering. Sugar, I think the only thing that's really working for us at the moment is tourism, if I'm right. And even that is, that's right, that's right. That is not something you can walk in and put on your manifesto and say, okay, we're going to improve the economy of the country like that. How are you looking at that?
Well, there are a number of things that you have to do. But first of all, I think that the private sector, if they see a government that comes in that inspires confidence in what they're going to do, that by itself will give you a boost and say, okay, I think that I want to invest right now because from the plans that I see in place, I think that they go somewhere else. But what we have said, we have 4 goals, and one of the goals that we have is to reduce the deficit by 50% in 10 years. And the only way you can do that is by increasing production, export, both local and import. And we need to find ways how we're going to do that. For instance, we will fast track trade negotiation with Mexico to ensure that some of our products can go into Mexico. We call a partial scope agreement. We need to look at Guatemala and also El Salvador and other areas potentially that we can do. I mean, you heard the government, the new president of Guatemala, where he's saying, he wants to see how we could have a better relationship through trade and sports and other cultural activities. And so, again, it has to be about trade. We have to be able to produce more. But we also have to work with the productive sector. We have to look at the tax structure for the productive sector. We have to look, for instance, as diesel, as we said, we are going to ensure that diesel does not go beyond $9, and then we have to rebalance it with the rest of the fuel. So these are some of the activities that we have to take. We have to make sure that when we train our Belizean workers to become more productive. For instance, I was speaking to a young businessman, and he's an engineer. He has two engineering degrees, and now he's doing like business-to-business programming, smart programs and so forth. And then he said he went to the United States, and he said that he tried to talk to a company, and the company said, "We'd love to do business with you, but you have 100 programmers. We don't have it." So I said, "Well, let's bring in 100 Indian programmers to work in that industry, and then have Belizeans that they can mentor Belizeans. So while they're programming, they're teaching Belizeans also to become programmers." We have to have this can-do attitude.
Right.
And that is the way we can get things done. I come from the private sector as a business person. And when in business, you have to get things done, you have to get it done with a sense of urgency. We have to go now back into government with that sense of urgency that we have to get things done, and we have to get it done now. We need to look at agriculture, both the large-scale agro-productive sector. They're telling us, he said, "John, within 2 years, or 3 years at the most, we could quadruple our export products into the Caribbean." I said, and one way you can do that is if government can partner for them, they can lease a 3,000-ton ship. They have them by the hundreds in the Middle East that they're not using anymore because they're too small. So we bring them here, we load all our products, and then we go from island to island dropping. We don't have to go through the United States, where then have the USDA and all of the other issues that they would have to address. So with this, we have a direct link to them, and then we pick up products from them and bring it to Belize, and so you have that circular. So it's just having that can-do. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of work. But you have to have that can-do mentality that we are going to get it done. The same applies to if we want to look at ITC, about technology, that bring the people to come if we don't have it, so that then they could, in effect, increase the productivity that we have, export our services to countries like the United States, but at the same time train our young people for them to become part of that new industry that can be created, and not only the call centers where only they answer phones. Our young kids are very talented. I was floored a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago. I was at a little gathering at in York when this young man tells, he say, you know, Mr. John, he said, my brother, he say he amazing, you know. He said, he no hacker. I said, like, what? He said, yes. He said, he could get within 30 feet to your phone, and he could hack your phone. He said, he do it to me. I said, how you learn? He said, teach yourself. The point I'm bringing across is that young people are good at technology. All we need to is to allow them their creativity to grow and the ability for how they could monetize
We
that.
have to give incentive
So
to
that they
those
could
who have
make money
talents in all areas,
from that.
sports included.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of the economy and so on, we know that the legalizing of recreational marijuana has boosted the economy of several states in the United States. You did bring it up basically the other day, and the PM shut you down, much to our surprise. He
But
eventually
we look
did
stupid
something.
afterwards
Yeah,
because
well,
some of his ministers are already
but can you
trying to
tell us more? Are you looking into
Yes,
this
we
area
sir. Yes, we are.
more
And,
detail?
yes, we are. And but again, marijuana has to be done. It might not be the best example when you say that it has to be legislated and regulated like alcohol. As it is right now, we're doing a poor job in ensuring that young people don't drink before that drinking age. So that is one of the things that we have to address, and one of the social problems that we have. But when it comes to marijuana, it has to be tightly regulated as to who are going to be the growers, who are going to be the buyers, and then so that then it can be exported. You see, people still think about marijuana like in the olden days, you know, where on plain land and you put in all of this big leaf, you know. It's no longer about that.
No.
It's about extracting the oils, you know, that you get from the marijuana. It is about also even bringing in
Byproducts.
the good quality
Seeds.
seeds that you're going to plant here in Belize. That are
I
not
thought
just
we had the
anything
best seeds.
that you know, and that's so that then you they
Probably
have
had.
the technology. And there are people in the United States that have done that.
Yeah.
That quite likely will be willing to come and to help us to set it up
Oh,
in such a
absolutely.
way that it can be
We have done
controlled.
several programs with persons here who are prepared to come and
For
educate
instance,
us.
like in Uruguay, I am told that the marijuana cigarettes are sold through dispensaries, the pharmacies, you know, where it is controlled, you know. So there's a lot of ways that you
Jamaica
can
is
find
doing a
way to
lot
do
of
that.
work in this.
Jamaica is doing a lot, and we've been left behind, as usual. I would not be surprised if people, some ministers, don't try to work on some side deal so that when they left, they have that to try to be able to do that. I would not. I've been hearing some talking about that. But it has to be done properly, well regulated, with proper legislation, and it has to be done with transparency so people could see what is happening, and that the monies that we collect, probably could do that into the fund where, for instance, I know you all want to talk about NHI, that can be used to be able to help to pay for NHI in this country.
Right, right.
Well, you mentioned NHI, and of course it's a discussion, but what we need to hear from you is how you're going to fix the big picture. Then these others will fall into place, like NHI, for instance. That's why I bring up the marijuana, which probably could boost and bring in extra revenue to the country. But you know, with that, you'll have the opposition again, like we're having the issue right now with the bill,
Equal opportunity.
equal
bill.
opportunity bill and all that. Those are issues that you'll have to deal with when the day comes.
And so as a government, I mean, I think you need to listen to everybody, but at the end of the day, you have, that's what Mr. Price used to always say, you're elected to govern.
Right.
And you have to do what you think is in the best interest of the country. And in the Equal Opportunity Bill, I have not seen the bill yet.
Yeah.
We are going to get well, the bill was sent to me last week, but we're meeting with a group that are going to explain to us the bill, like in everything. I believe in equal opportunity for all. And then if it meets the criteria that we expect, then I think it's something that we should be able to support. But we're not there yet.
They're
We
not
have
there.
to see what is there.
Yeah,
But
right.
in the overall scope of things, I think, as we were talking about with the economy, our debt situation, the last review, Article 4 by the IMF, puts us somewhere very close to 100% of GDP, which is about $4 billion in debt, because it is heralded that our economy is around $4 billion. And the IMF, if I remember correctly, was like 94% of GDP, plus you have all these contingency liability attached to that, so we're somewhere close to 100% of GDP. Is there going to be a fervent plan also to try to reduce that to a much more manageable component, as well as to increase our foreign reserve, which is under 3 months of import, according to the IMF as well?
Well, of course, with our plan is we're working on a plan to have an average growth rate of 5% of GDP every year, and with some of the plans that we want to put in place, and by increasing the growing the economy and collecting more tax, being more efficient in your tax collection, then you can start to reduce your debt. The only way you could reduce your debt is by increasing, growing the economy.
Right.
And so one of the priorities for us has to be growth, in growing the economy and be more efficient and effective in collecting taxes that we're supposed to collect, because we know that's another issue that has to be dealt with very swiftly. But at the same time, it does not mean that we would not. I don't think we can be, just to get elected, we're going to make certain pronouncements, we're not going to borrow. We have to borrow. Like, again, put it into a business person analogy. The only way you could grow your business in most instances is that you borrow. But you borrow and then you spend it wisely, that then it would
get returns.
We come back
because
to
if you
that
buy
again.
if you borrow and then you go buy a nice car and you go to States and then when it's time to pay, you would not be able to pay. And that is what is happening to us. When you have the Prime Minister talking about that and defending somebody like Emer Hernandez, when every citizen in this country, with the exception of maybe Emer, know that he does substandard work, something is wrong. When the Prime Minister has a misplaced priorities, such as spending $180 million going to Caracol, something is seriously wrong. When you are going to have a bridge right there at and you can see it right at the Roaring Creek, over the Roaring Creek, you have this humongous bridge, that we don't need one bridge that big. We need a bridge, yes, but these are instances what it shows you that they are just spending on infrastructure, obviously for ulterior motives, and everybody knows that. When you have a person who was driving a dump truck in 2008 and today is a multimillionaire many times over, something is wrong. When this same person, when the Ministry of Works would tell you we are tendering for the road, the coastal road, and it's going to be broken up into 2 contracts, and no company can get both contracts. And then you turn around and give it now to the very same person whose first culvert that he built on the Western Highway and the George Price caved in, so they have to do it over. When that very same person, according to the Ministry of Works, in the first 8 months, have only produced 24.6% of the work. And you only got 10 more months to go. And then you give him the entire 2 boat contracts. And now you're hearing that his supposed partner, Mexican partner, is pulling out from the partnership that they have. It makes you question. Now, we know that we have to continue to invest in infrastructure, but we have to do it wisely. We have to put priorities. Where are our priorities? And then address it accordingly. But not just to say, me build this highway and I build that one and I build that one, and then people are getting massive kickbacks.
Yeah. What's your view overall and strategy going forward in terms of the safety net components that is built into the system, in terms of the things like pantry and boost and those things?
That's a very good question, because we've said, and I know that the UDP as part of the campaign are saying that the PUP is going to come in and to take it off. No, we're not going to do that. But it has to be fixed. And I've been having a few meetings. I've had meetings on at least 2 occasions with the with the religious leaders. And they're pointing out that they're saying, we want to do more than just go give the opening prayer. We want to see how we can get more involved into addressing the issues of poverty and youth delinquency and the crime and all of that. And one of the ways that we've been talking, and we don't have it planned yet, but we're talking about it, is so that maybe they could help us in managing the food pantry program, some of these programs that would ensure that we could try to minimize, I can't say we're going to take it 100% now, but to minimize the political interference in the system. For instance, a social worker came to me in 2015, and she was heartbroken and said that because during the campaign in 2015 in Orange Walk North, the campaigners used to tell the people that are getting their boost and their pantry program is saying that if you don't put a UDP flag, we're going to take you off on the list. That kind of thing that needs to stop. We need to stop, and we need to fix some of these issues. So, again, we don't have all the answers. We can't do it all alone. We need to govern different, and we have to bring in more partners to be able to help us to be able to do it properly.
You said that, of course, a lot of these areas you're still talking about it and so
But of course,
you're going to handle it.
Yes.
But you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Because you've been asked if you're ready for the next elections.
Yes, we are.
You said you are, but we need this. You see, there is still a lot of doubt out there on the system, and you need to specifically say these are the things we're going to do.
But these are the things that we're telling you that we're going to do.
Okay.
Now, as to the actual point by point, line by line, yes.
No, I agree with that. I agree, but there has to be a final line that says, I will do this. What I'm asking you...
we will do it. And
Right.
that is, these things that I'm talking to you is that we are going to do them.
They're going to be manifesto
The only difference right
Right.
now, Ernesto, is that I'm talking about is that we don't have it like, everything properly written out, but these are the
But
the
your
things
intention.
these are the things that we are going to do. Now, right now, as it is right now, we have 17 different teams working in preparing policy documents.
Okay.
They started to work since November, and we hope that by the end of this month,
That's- that's
this
a-
month, we're going to have that, and then we're going to
Like a
have
white paper. Like a white paper.
That's what
and then
I'm
we're going to
talking
start to
about.
have
Policy rollout.
publicly, kind of using technology, doing in public forum, but at the same time doing it via Facebook
And the media and so
forth,
on.
and the media and
That's
whatever
what
else.
I'm getting at, because how possible is it that early elections will be called, as far as you're concerned?
Well, a leadership
Well,
convention comes up
See, I was
February
going
9th
to,
for
the
the-
leadership, first we have to wait until the leadership convention comes up.
So we know nothing will happen in February.
After that, then we can see what will happen, because Prime Minister blew hot and cold, so you could never know what he's thinking. But what I can tell you is that we are ready. We are getting ready. We are putting, as it is right now, we've been doing a lot of work, quiet work, infrastructure work, if you want to call it, to ensure that our executives, our standard bearers, they have committees in place ready, that they have a campaign team, and putting everything in place. We're working on the strategy. All of that is pretty much ready to say. If they say go, we're ready to go.
With all the issues that are occurring now to the present administration, do you think this puts more pressure on the Prime Minister to call an early election?
Again, it depends who's going to be the leader, because if supposedly, he has not told me personally, but
His
there's a
favorite?
general feeling that he's supporting John Saldívar. I'm told that should John Saldívar not win, there's a possibility that he may decide to just call election, just not to pass it on to the other person. But John Saldívar has a lot of problems, a lot of legal problems, a lot of legal issues. So they're in a problem. They have a massive problem. So who is it that's going to be the leader? And that is why I could understand when the Prime Minister is saying that, well, it seems that he has to stay until when he calls the election.
Should not concern you all in Parliament, saying that seeing that the government might be totally distracted from what they're expected to perform in terms of carrying out their duty to stabilize this economy and to move the economy forward, even if it is that they're going to be around for the next 10 or 11 months. Should not be a continued concern that most of the discussions that they might be having have nothing to do with uplifting the country?
Well, we have been saying that from day one. I mean, for instance, we never saw a coherent plan of action as to what exactly the government is going to be doing. So they are just governing almost like on a whim, you know. So, oh yeah, we'll do this, or we could go do this street, we could go, you know, and but without a national plan. For instance, I'll give you on a micro level in Orange Town, when the mayor Kevin Bernard became the mayor for the first time in 2012, we said, you know, one of the biggest things in Orange was the streets. So they hadn't paved streets in years, and we need to find how we could pave a network of streets. And we came to a plan to say, all right, what we're going to do, we're going to pave the main arteries of the town. So they might not pave your street, but you get out from your street, and right after that you get into a paved road that will take you to the other side with all paved roads until then you get to your final destination. So a simple plan like that they don't have in place.
Yeah.
And now when you go now to Orange Walk, now you see a lot of paved roads, but a lot of the paved roads are not done, oh, and people leave this one and go pave that. It is done because of the importance of that road or that street for the town. We don't see the UDP government doing that. They have never come up with that kind of plan. I mean, they say, oh, let's beautify Belize City. So they spent $100-200 million doing Dial Bradley was for the time that Dial Bradley was in government. Make we beautify the Belmo Pond, you know, and it's so ironic. That roundabout that they built, you know, where the fountain and it's pretty. Government spent, I'm told, as much as $13 million they spent on that. And now when you put the road and the bridge, you know, they missed the roundabout, so quite likely they have to knock down the roundabout to fix it, because there is no planning. It's all a hustle. It's all a hustle. That's what this government has been doing from day one.
Overall, the PUP control 3 municipalities, Belize City, Orange Walk, and Corozal. In terms of example of good governance, do you see those as a beacon to point to in comparison with maybe how the other municipalities are operating under the present government leadership, party leadership?
Well, if you look at Belize City, let's start with Belize City. If you look at comparing how Belize City is being managed now to what it was being managed before, you see a big difference night and day. The mayor is more approachable, the councillors are more approachable, they tend to be more open and looking at projects that affects people positively. For instance, like the Grieving Matters program that they have in place. You know, just the other day, our councillor Candice Spitz was explaining to it and how they offered help to the family when they killed this little kid and hurt the little brother. You know, these are things that affect people personally. Coming on to Christmas, they decided 6 weeks before Christmas to put in another 100+ people to do a complete cleanup campaign in the entire city. Not only the areas that we walk around, but even in the corners, the farthest corners of the city. These are actions that have a direct impact on the lives of our citizens. Well, Orange Walk has always been, to Kevin and his team's credit, now they've always been a shining example of what you can do when you have the right people in place, you know, and they have that can-do spirit when you look at the town, the streets, the parks and everything. And they also have the issue of transparency. They always put up their finances, I think, quarterly on the website, so anybody can see how the monies are being spent. And Corozal, the same thing, but Corozal now is in its worst bind, because just before the election, the government, the town council, bind the town council, I think, for about 10 years to Iber Hernandez. The first 3 months, they paved some streets, badly done actually, already breaking up. And the first 3 months, I think that the entire amount of monies that they collect from their subvention goes to Iber Hernandez. And then every month, I think they have to pay like an additional $5,000 after that. So they're cash-strapped, so they're trying to see how they can work their way out of that. But as it is, you're starting to see some semblance of order in the town councils. It's not easy. It's very difficult. It's hard work. but you just have to be on top of it, and at all time remember, why is it that you were elected? You were elected simply to make the lives of your citizens better.
And it is, of course, the next few weeks and months to keep convincing those citizens that you are going to change that. We still get the feel out there sometimes, you know, and the present administration does use it a lot. They keep reminding everyone how bad you were, you know, and like you said the other day, we tired of hearing that.
Well, that's
Want to hear
12
what you're
years
gonna
ago
do.
for
Exactly,
crying out loud,
exactly.
you know, and 12 years
So-
ago, somebody that's 18 or even 20, you know, was 8 years old, you know, so, you know, that has gone. You were elected because you said you are going to be different and you're going to make it better. And as bad as we were never as bad as what we are today. And that's not an excuse. And when you look at the finances of the country, when they were saying that we're on the verge of bankruptcy and everything, the Prime Minister had to admit when he put his first budget, he presented his first budget in the House in July of 2008, that we had a deficit of less than 1% of GDP. And we did that simply because, well, you know, after the G7 in 2004, and we sat down with the Prime Minister, with then Said Musa, and it got serious in governance, and we had to tighten belt and make sure that we are being more strategic in how we're spending monies. And so we managed to bring it together, and so that then that he managed to get a good hand. I don't think we have that right now.
And I know we're just over time, but there is the criticism that based on all the government is doing, they're allowed to get away with quite a bit without getting serious agitation from the People's United Party in a more robust way. And secondly, also to be able to deflect some of those same issues that we just spoke about, that he keeps bringing back, this pies and chalice kind of mentality, which basically you're saying is basically old news. But he tries to bring it back as new news all the time, and is allowed to do that in an open space without any contraction.
I don't think that issue of poison chalice, is going anywhere. People don't get tired of that, and it's going absolutely nowhere. So that set that aside. Now people are saying, well, the PUP is not agitating. We have done several demonstrations, but as I said last week, it is not only the responsibility of the PUP, it's the responsibility of all of us. But there are members in the public service that were out there agitating against us that have been compromised by this government, so they can't make noise. And that is the problem. Even the private sector, when the chamber was out there, you know, making all of these noise and even threatening to shut down businesses, you know, for a day in protest. You know, here the chamber, they talk like that, well, they take us some lead letters and so, but you have never been there, all right, well, we are shut down this place. It is not only the responsibility of the PUP, it is a shared responsibility. The UDP, when all of this thing started, it was not the UDP that was at the helm, you know. When this night started is when the workers from BTL, you know, sabotaged BTL. And then after that, then the chamber said, okay, well, we want joining. It is only after that that the UDP jumped in. It was not the UDP that was leading the charge. Today, we don't hear much from the labor unions, with the exception of the teachers' unions. We don't hear much from the chamber, more short of they write one letter to the Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister basically gave them a middle finger, you know, when they asked for this thing. You don't hear the union or the chamber, they say, well, if you don't give with this is the action that we're going to take. And they say, oh, they're not the answer way. And then you look at me and say, well, where the PUP there? We could take out 10,000 people in a week on the streets, but it is of no use if the chamber and the unions are not prepared to join and go after this government. It has to be done together.
This comes full circle to the whole point of the people feel like they have nowhere to turn.
No, I don't think so.
And if the chamber is giving us that feeling, and if the big bodies are doing that, then it feeds right down to the person on the street. First you hear, am I going to vote? You know, my vote doesn't count. But like what the Plato say, if you're not interested in the affairs of your government, you're doomed to be ruled by fools. So
which is happening right now.
Right, you have to get involved in, I agree, but it has to come from you. You are the leader, or the
Yes.
want to be leader, and that leader, you have to give me that confidence.
And that
you
is-
have to do that. So
Ernesto,
at the end of the day, you will have to come out and say, look, Chamber, look, or this is, I got your back, and these are specific things that I will legislate or do at the end of the day to make sure that you trust me in that when you do any activity, I will listen.
Ernesto, there's no person in this country, politician or otherwise, that traverse across this country like I do. And not a matter of boasting, but I think I am one of the few persons that can have a real pulse
Okay.
of people.
You see, there you go. We have to depend on you for that.
Yes. But no, you just accuse me that now they do that.
No. I am,
But
I
let
am
me finish, let me
saying
finish,
that
let me
you
finish.
need
My
to
point.
feed that.
But my point is that Belizeans have made up their minds about this government. They wait for the day to get rid of them. And now they have been looking at what we're doing and what we stand for. So because the elite no one jump out there, then people on the street, they're ready for us. And they're dealing with us and they're working with us. The UDP never sit down with the chamber and say, I want got your back and I want to do this and that. No, we gone out there and make nice. They never wait for the UDP. But right now, we're not prepared for that. Why? Because you know that you have a government that's vindictive. We're not afraid of Jean Barrow. That's what they do to you. We're not afraid that they name you and shame you. And that is the truth. That is the truth. Now, it don't mean that I did pick fight with the chamber. We need the chamber. We want to be partners with the chamber. And we will be meeting with them shortly when we start to talk about, for instance, right now, once we finish these papers on, for instance, the economy and taxation and kind of thing, we're going to sit down and we're going to work with them. We're going to show what is it that we stand for and what are some of the things that we want to do. But also the chamber needs to understand that we are going to govern, not the chamber. The chamber is going to be a partner with us. And we are going to work with them. Because the economy, you see, for us to do everything that we want to do starts with one basic thing, that we have to get the economy going. And the only way we could get the economy going is that if we have the members of the chamber, not the chamber, the members of the chamber to say, you know what, I want to be a part of that.
Right.
I think I want to invest because I feel that, we don't put the laws in place.
So it all comes back to trust.
It's going to,
confidence.
that we are going to put laws, we have to put a law that protects your investment in this country so that you feel that, all right, no government can come like what this government has done and say, oh yes, you never support me. Well, this is what happened to you.
Okay.
And it starts with trust. Like you agree? We both agree. The
it's
easiest
trust.
thing to do is to lose trust. The most difficult thing to do is to get it back.
Get it back.
And right now with us, the only way we could get back that trust is that when we are in position to take actions so that they could see what we do and what we're all about.
Well, we're waiting for that. The papers you said and so on. We're waiting for that. That will be the next conversation, actually.
Yep. Well,
Sure.
any final words, Party Leader?
No, gentlemen, I just want to thank you for giving us giving me the opportunity to be able to talk about some of these things. And I know, I mean, gentlemen, I know that it's not personal when you're asking me these tough questions because it is very important. People need to hear from us, and they don't want to hear to us just the pretty things, but even the difficult questions and how is it that some of the things that we want to do. We are going to be changing legislation that is going to be part of our 100-day agenda. For instance, one of the things that we want to do, I will be asking our Attorney General, I'll give him 6 months or her 6 months to look at how we can limit the powers of the minister. Not to a sense where you straitjacket the person, but to be able to limit the powers that they have so that they could work effectively and efficiently, but at the same time know that they could do anything what they want and they're not going to be held accountable, for instance, and you could hold me to that. But in the first 6 months, we want to do that. And then the first 100 days, a lot of the legislation that we want to put in place, like with the anti-corruption and stuff like that, we are going to have all of that in place so that we can get that done very quickly so that we could get things going from day one.
Well, we couldn't ask for more right now.
Yes, I think we've covered quite a large subject area. We kind of covered most of the significant areas, both where we are, and what's the plan for going forward, and how we're going to get there. For the most part, we have covered all of those areas. So, at the end of the day, we're waiting now for the the election to be called to see whether or not those things are going to be able to come into maturity if the people
I have
so
every
desire.
confidence that I am very confident that the people, when they call elections, that they're going to vote for the PUP. Not only because they're tired of the UDP, but because you see a fresh beginning in the PUP. That we've been doing a lot of changes in the PUP. That we have people that understand how to run an economy, that will be able to get things going and to address the issues. As somebody put it easily, it's 3 C's. It says corruption, crime, creating jobs.
Alrighty.
So that takes care of everything.
For right now, yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to the
certainly.
leader of the opposition, John Briceno, was here this morning, and of course, I'm sure we'll see you again, and we'll be talking some
Será
more.
un placer.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, we got to go. Victor
sir.
is back from vacation, and he's manning the,
Yeah,
the
master
floor today,
control
our master
operator.
and cameraman.
Yes, yes.
And
Andrew
Andrew
is
is streaming
streaming.
us on Facebook, of course.
Karen is on
and we will mention
radio.
to our technicians, we seem to have a little issue.
Yeah,
on
with
the
our
radio,
signal.
With our signal, and Karen is in the radio studio.
Could it
Of
be
course,
because they say that I rep on the radio?
you know?
Some of our supporters are saying that just because you were there, John.
Yes, we-
Well, you know, conspiracy theories will definitely kick in.
But that's not true. I'm just.
And to remind you that because of this special event with our CEO and having the ceremonies in Honduras,
Right.
tomorrow our news broadcast will start at 5,
Right.
not at 6.
And not at 6
Because
as
there'll be a
usual.
live broadcast from La Ceiba
That's Cyber Honduras.
and that, so you can tune in for that. That's tomorrow.
And-
Thank you all, and of course, it's always a pleasure being with you. I'll be back tomorrow with more on the morning show. So take care, be kind to somebody today. Belize and beyond, thanks for choosing love. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.